Alright guys, with what is happening right now, it's now clearly understood that Kanu is fighting principalities and powers, you understand? I am always using that language in the high places, so you get, because these people, they just sit down on Nnamdi Kanu. See, with what happened on the 15th of September in the Federal High Court, we make you understand that this is not just the way we are looking at this case. This is not just the way we are looking at this case. You understand? This case is not going to be easy. Anyway, guys, I am going to drop this video so that you people will understand what is happening. How the Fulani chief judge that rejected Nnamdi Kanu emergency medical treatment has been exposed. This video will shock you. You understand? So guys, let's get there. I'll be right back.
In a nation where justice is meant to be a blindfolded woman, a judge with open eyes just made a decision that has lit a fuse under an entire people. This is not just a court case, it is a battle for the soul of a nation, and the shocking new front is the body of a man. We're talking about the life or death decision made against Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, a man whose freedom movement has become an all-out spiritual and political war. The judge in question, Justice Musa Leman, a man many are calling a tool of ethnic and political oppression, a judge accused of valuing cattle over human lives, a judge who allegedly has a history of political interference and biased rulings. The latest ruling, denying urgent medical care to a gravely ill Nnamdi Kanu, is being seen not as a judicial technicality, but as a deliberate act of silent execution. This isn't a simple news story, it's the continuation of a decades-old fight. It's a gut-wrenching reminder of the 1966 pogroms and the 3 million lives lost in the Biafran War. It's a stark, painful moment that asks, what happens to a man, a movement, and a people when their very right to exist is put on trial? What happens when the last hope for justice becomes a slaughter ground? The answers will not only determine one man's fate, but the future of every Igbo person who has ever dared to dream of freedom. Stay with us to understand the full, chilling details of this judicial betrayal and why it means the fight for Biafra is far from over. The judge who refused to grant Nnamdi Kanu emergency medical treatment in Abuja has been identified as Justice Musa Leman, a Fulani judge from Nasarawa State. He is the Abuja High Court judge who rejected Nnamdi Kanu's urgent medical treatment request. Many critics accuses him of having no regard for human life, claiming he values cattle over people, reflecting alleged Fulani cultural bias. The rejection of medical treatment is described as prioritizing the case over Nnamdi Kanu's health and ability to defend himself in court. Justice Musa Leman is portrayed as a judge with a history of controversial rulings, often criticized for bias, political interference, and disregard for higher court orders. Examples cited include his June 2025 Kano Emirates injunction, which blocked Sanusi Lamido Sanusi's reinstatement despite state approval, sparking accusations of federal overreach. In April 2025, he halted the suspension of APC chairman Abdullahi Ganduje, allegedly favoring political interests and undermining judicial hierarchy. He was also accused of delaying rulings in the Edo governorship election case, 2020 to 2021, eroding trust in judicial efficiency. In another case, he denied activist Omoli's passport release, citing trivial technicalities, drawing criticism from human rights groups for violating freedom of movement. The critics insist Justice Musa Leman's court is routinely used by the federal government to manipulate outcomes, calling it a slaughter ground rather than a place of justice. Biafrans and supporters of Nnamdi Kanu are encouraged to remain steadfast and faithful that divine healing and justice will ultimately prevail. The narrative that has unfolded in recent days is one of profound injustice and a chilling disregard for human life, a story that resonates with the deep-seated grievances of an entire people. It's a tale of two realities, one seen from the corridors of power in Abuja and the other felt in the hearts and homes of every Igbo man and woman, both in Igbo land and across the world. The problems in this story are manifold, and they are not new. They are a continuation of a historical pattern, a chain of events that began long before any of us were born. The central problem, the one that has seized the attention of the world, is the outright denial of urgent medical treatment to Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. This is not just a legal matter, but a moral and a spiritual one. The fundamental right to health, to life itself, has been suspended not by a faceless bureaucracy, but by a single individual, a Fulani chief judge named Justice Musa Leman. The refusal of a court to grant a man access to a doctor to attend to a life-threatening illness is an act of calculated cruelty. It's a silent and slow execution, a way to do away with a political opponent without the messy and public spectacle of a firing squad. This is a problem that speaks to the very soul of the Nigerian state, a system that, from the perspective of Biafrans, seems to operate not on principles of justice, but on the dictates of a specific ethnic and political agenda. How did this problem occur? It is the culmination of decades of systemic oppression. The Nigerian judiciary, which should be the final bastion of hope for the common person, has been weaponized. It has become a tool of the executive, a place where the rule of law is a suggestion, not a mandate. The current situation with Mazi Nnamdi Kanu did not happen in a vacuum. It is a direct result of a legal system that has been molded and shaped to serve the interests of the powerful, particularly those of the Fulani oligarchy that has, for decades, held a disproportionate amount of power in the Nigerian state. The fact that the judge in this case, Justice Musa Leman, is from a specific ethnic group, the Fulani, is not a coincidence. It is, to those who have watched this drama unfold, a glaring and painful symbol of the ethnic and political bias that pervades every level of Nigerian society. It is a system where the life of an Igbo man, especially one who dares to challenge the status quo, is deemed less valuable than the preservation of a flawed and corrupt political order. What happened in the story is a straightforward but heartbreaking event. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, a man held in detention by the Nigerian state, is gravely ill. His doctors have examined him and have made a clear and urgent recommendation. He needs to be moved to a hospital for immediate medical attention. His lawyers, in a move that is both legally sound and morally imperative, approached the court with a motion to grant this transfer. The court, presided over by Justice Musa Leman, had a simple and clear decision to make. It could uphold the basic human right to life and allow the medical transfer, or it could deny it. In a move that has sent shockwaves through the Biafran global community and among human rights activists everywhere, the judge rejected the request. He did so not on the merits of the case, not on any legal principle, but on a trivial and self-serving technicality. He claimed his tenure as a vacation judge was over, and that he lacked the jurisdiction to hear the matter. This is a judge who had the opportunity to save a life, to show a glimmer of compassion and impartiality, and he chose to hide behind the thin veil of judicial procedure. What provoked this heinous act? The provocation is rooted in the very nature of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu and the Biafra global movement he represents. For too long, the Igbo people have been silenced, marginalized and brutalized. The Nigerian state and its leaders, primarily from the Hausa, Fulani and Yoruba ethnic groups, have seen the Biafran agitation not as a cry for justice, but as a threat to their control over the vast wealth and resources of the nation. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is the physical embodiment of this threat. He is a voice that cannot be silenced, a leader who has awakened the consciousness of millions. The Nigerian government's relentless persecution of him is not a matter of law enforcement, but a political vendetta. They fear what he represents, the possibility of Afri Biafra, a nation where the Igbo people can determine their own destiny, free from the yoke of a government that has, for generations, treated them as second-class citizens. Their refusal of medical treatment is the latest and most vicious tactic in a long and brutal campaign to break his spirit and, if possible, to end his life. The consequences are immense and far-reaching. The immediate and most terrifying consequence is the potential loss of a life. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's health is in a precarious state, and with each passing day that he is denied access to proper medical care, his life hangs in a more delicate balance. But the consequences are not limited to him alone. This act of blatant injustice erodes any remaining trust in the Nigerian legal system. For Biafrans and their sympathizers, it confirms what they have long known, that the courts, the police, the military and the government are all part of a single coordinated apparatus of oppression. It is a profound psychological blow, a reaffirmation that they are not seen as equal citizens in a country that claims to be a single nation. This injustice will fuel the fire of the Biafran struggle, making people more resolute in their demand for self-determination. The rejection of medical care is not a setback. It is a catalyst, a rallying cry for those who are tired of living under a system that denies them their basic humanity. Are there possible solutions? If they are, how far are we from it? The solutions are not simple, and they will not be easy to achieve. The first and most immediate solution is to pressure the Nigerian government to grant Mazi Nnamdi Kanu his medical leave. This requires a concerted effort from international organizations, human rights groups, and a global community that values justice. The world must see this for what it is, a human rights crisis, not just an internal political matter. Individuals and groups who have a conscience must raise their voices, write letters, and protest against this barbarism. The Nigerian government is sensitive to international opinion, and a strong and unified global condemnation could force them to reverse their decision. However, the more profound and lasting solution lies in addressing the root causes of this persecution. It is the recognition that the current political structure of Nigeria is inherently flawed. It is a colonial construct, a forced marriage of diverse ethnic groups that have been in conflict for decades. The only long-term solution, from the perspective of the Biafra global movement, is self-determination. It is the right for the Igbo people to decide their own future, to govern themselves, and to live in a nation where they are not constantly subjected to marginalization, persecution, and the threat of violence. This is not a quick fix. It is a long and arduous process, one that requires political will, a shift in global perspective, and an unshakable resolve from the Biafran people. We are a long way from this solution. The forces that benefit from the status quo are powerful and entrenched. They will not give up their power easily. The Nigerian government and its allies will continue to use every tool at their disposal, from the judiciary to the military, to suppress the Biafran movement. But the current situation, the overt and casual cruelty of a judge's decision, has made the path forward clearer than ever. It has shown the world that the only real solution is separation. To understand the full weight of this news report, one must have a grasp of the historical context, a history that is often erased or rewritten to suit the narrative of the oppressor. The marginalization and persecution of the Igbo people did not begin with the Biafran War, but the war itself was a brutal and devastating consequence of it. Following Nigeria's independence, the Igbo people, known for their industry and entrepreneurial spirit, prospered and rose to prominence across the country. This success, however, bred resentment and suspicion from other ethnic groups, particularly the Hausa Fulani in the north, who saw the Igbo's presence as a threat to their traditional power structures. This resentment boiled over in a series of horrific pogroms in 1966, where thousands of Igbo people living in the north were hunted down and massacred. The federal government, dominated by northern interests, did little to stop the killings. Instead of providing protection, they looked on as their citizens were slaughtered. It was this historical injustice, this unprovoked and brutal persecution, that led to the declaration of the Republic of Biafra in 1967. The response from the Nigerian government was not to seek a peaceful resolution, but to launch a full-scale war, a war that would last for 3 years and claim the lives of an estimated 3 million Biafrans, most of whom were children who died from starvation as a result of a deliberate and inhumane food blockade. The Nigerian military and its security forces committed unspeakable atrocities, acts that today would be considered war crimes and genocide. The famous phrase of the then head of state, Yakubu Gowon, "No victor, no vanquished," was a cruel lie. The Igbo people returned to Nigeria not as equals, but as a defeated and punished people. The government implemented policies that were designed to cripple their economic power and to ensure they would never again be a political force. The infamous £20 policy, which gave every Igbo person a flat sum of £20 regardless of how much they had in their bank accounts, was an act of economic warfare. These historical injustices continue to haunt the Igbo people to this day. They are denied high-ranking positions in the military and government. Their region, the southeast, is systematically neglected in terms of infrastructure and economic development. The political landscape is rigged against them, ensuring that a person of Igbo descent will never ascend to the highest office in the land. This is the context in which Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's persecution must be understood. He is not just a man on trial. He is a symbol of a people's long and painful struggle for dignity, justice, and survival. His life is not just his own. It is intertwined with the destiny of every Igbo person who has ever felt the weight of marginalization and the sting of oppression. The actions of Justice Musa Leman, a man who allegedly values cattle over people, are not an isolated event. They are a continuation of a historical pattern of oppression, a pattern that the Biafran global movement is determined to break. They are a stark reminder that the fight for Biafra is not just about political independence. It is about the very right to exist. And so we must continue to expand upon the details of this tragedy, for the truth is often found in the small, painful moments that history books tend to gloss over. The actions of Justice Musa Leman are not merely a footnote in a legal case. They are a profound and deliberate act of provocation. This man, a supposed arbiter of justice, has become a willing participant in the ongoing persecution of an entire people. It is no secret that the Hausa Fulani oligarchy, which has dominated Nigeria for decades, sees the Biafran movement as an existential threat to their power and control. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu with his powerful voice and unyielding commitment to freedom, represents everything they fear. He is a symbol of a people who have said, "Enough is enough," a people who refuse to be treated as a defeated and conquered tribe in their own land. The denial of his medical treatment is not just about his health, it is about sending a message to the Biafran global community. The message is clear. Your leader's life is in our hands, and we can dispose of it as we please, with no regard for the law, for human rights, or for a man's basic right to dignity. The consequences of this act ripple far beyond the walls of the courtroom. For millions of Igbo people, both at home and in the diaspora, this is not just a news story, it is a personal affront. It is a reminder of the historical injustices they have suffered, of the pogroms of 1966, of the genocidal war that followed, and of the continued marginalization and persecution they face every single day. The image of a Fulani judge denying a sick Igbo man medical care taps into the deepest wounds of a people who have long been subjected to the tyranny of a state that is supposed to protect them. It confirms every suspicion, every fear, and every painful memory. It is a calculated act of cruelty that reinforces the notion that in Nigeria, justice and peace are not for everyone. The historical injustices are not just abstract concepts, they are lived realities. We must recount them in vivid detail so that no one can ever forget what was done to the Igbo people. The pogroms of 1966 were not spontaneous riots. They were state-sanctioned massacres designed to terrorize and drive the Igbo people out of the north. Eyewitness accounts speak of pregnant women being disemboweled, of men being hacked to death with machetes, and of entire families being burned alive in their homes. These were not just killings, they were acts of depravity designed to dehumanize and eradicate a people. And what was the response of the Nigerian government? Silence, indifference, and a continuation of the same policies that led to the violence in the first place. The Biafran War that followed was a natural and inevitable consequence of this brutality. When a people are pushed to the brink, when their very survival is at stake, they have no choice but to fight for their freedom. But the world turned a blind eye. The United Nations, the global powers, and the international community stood by as the Nigerian government, armed with weapons from the West, carried out a deliberate policy of starvation. The image of emaciated Biafran children with their distended bellies and hollowed-out eyes became a symbol of a forgotten genocide. This is the historical context that gives meaning to the persecution of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. His fight is not just a modern political struggle, it is a continuation of a fight that began in 1966, a fight for a people's right to exist. The Nigerian government and its security forces, which are overwhelmingly dominated by northerners, have continued this legacy of persecution and atrocities. In the southeast, the military and police act like an occupying force, not as peacekeepers. They are accused of extrajudicial killings, of arbitrary arrests, and of the brutal suppression of peaceful protests. The very sight of a Nigerian soldier in Igbo land evokes a sense of fear and apprehension, not a feeling of safety. The events in Onitsha, Aba, and Port Harcourt, where countless unarmed Biafran agitators were allegedly shot and killed by security forces, are fresh in the minds of the people. This is not a country where all citizens are treated equally. This is a country where one ethnic group, the Igbo, is treated as a perpetual enemy of the state. The case of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is the perfect microcosm of this larger reality. He is a political prisoner, not a criminal, and his persecution is a clear indication that the Nigerian state has no intention of ever granting the Igbo people true freedom or justice. So, where do we go from here? The path to a solution is not through the Nigerian courts, which have proven to be a compromised instrument of the state. It is not through negotiation with a government that has shown itself to be untrustworthy and deceitful. The solution lies in a renewed and unwavering commitment to the Biafra global movement. It lies in the courage of the Biafran people, both at home and abroad, to continue to speak truth to power, to continue to demand their freedom, and to continue to expose the hypocrisy and brutality of the Nigerian state. The denial of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's medical treatment is not a defeat. It is a new chapter in the struggle. It is a moment of clarity that forces everyone to choose a side. Are you for justice and human rights, or are you for oppression and tyranny? There can be no middle ground. The international community, which has a moral and ethical obligation to intervene, must be awakened from its slumber. We must continue to protest, to organize, and to mobilize until the world can no longer ignore the suffering of the Biafran people. The distance to a possible solution is far, but with every act of injustice, the resolve of the people grows stronger. The road is long and difficult, but the destination is clear: the restoration of the Biafra, a land where peace and justice will finally reign, where a man's worth is not judged by his ethnicity, and where the lives of Simon Ekpa, Nnamdi Kanu, and all Biafran heroes and heroines are no longer in constant peril. And so, as the sun sets on another day of injustice, a new dawn is on the horizon. The truth, like a seed planted in the soil, will inevitably grow and blossom. The story of Justice Musa Leman's callous decision is not just a tale of a single man's cruelty. It is a testament to the fundamental problems that plague the Nigerian state. The Biafran spirit, forged in the crucible of persecution and hardship, will not be broken. The struggles of Simon Ekpa and Nnamdi Kanu and the unwavering commitment of the Biafran global movement are not for naught. The pain, the suffering, and the sacrifices of the Igbo people will not be in vain. For every act of oppression, there is a corresponding act of defiance. For every injustice, there is a renewed commitment to the fight for freedom. And as we continue to stand in the face of this tyranny, let us be reminded of the unwavering faith that justice will ultimately prevail, and that a new day will come when the sun will rise over a free and sovereign Biafra, a nation built on the principles of justice, equality, and the unshakable belief that every human life is sacred and priceless.
Alright guys, so what's your take on this? Let's hear from you. Please drop your comments below the comment section. Do you think Mazi Nnamdi Kanu will be ever, in Nigerian court, ever be granted freedom? Even at this stage, they are still dragging him. So guys, let's hear from you. Bye for now.